So to start off with, a happy Easter to everybody. And so the subject of today's talk will be Christ our inspiration, but naturally we're orientated around today's festival of Easter. And I suppose we have to begin at the beginning. Several questions are asked in connection with this feast day. First of all, this is the most significant day in the Christian calendar. Well, many people think, no, it's Christmas and all that, but not at all. And I remember having a discussion with one of my brother monks to say, what will we do for Easter? And he didn't understand the significance of this, thinking that it is Christmas is the most important festival. Naturally, Christmas is significant, but of course, many people don't connect the festival of Christmas with Christ or anything like that. It's just to do with a man with a beard and bringing presents and many other different things. And the same thing goes for Easter in the sense that one question might be, apart from what is its origin, what has it to do with rabbits and Easter eggs and things? And then the other question would be, how did we get this name Easter? Of course, we have to go back to Judaism. Why do we have to go back to Judaism? Because there is a feast that celebrates the passing over or celebrates the Exodus. Exodus means people were living in slavery in Egypt, and they managed to escape from that through the desert over 40 years and so on. But before that, there was a slaughter of the innocents. And the slaughter of the innocents means that the angel of death came to all the the Israelites really, and with the blood of a lamb painted a mark on all the doors so that these people would be saved. And so the passing over, the angel passing over, that's where this feast of Pasch comes from, or Pasch. It's a Jewish festival. And it so happened, around about 30 or so, 33 AD, that a group of people were celebrating a feast like this, as was traditional in the Jewish custom. And so they were in an upper chamber, they were feasting like every other Jewish person. And by the time of 33 AD, the whole festival of Passover, we might say, is a temple festival orientated around the temple in Jerusalem. And lambs have to be offered. In a sense, it's a kind of commercial thing, and we see that in some Christian Gospels. There is Jesus going in with his followers, upsetting the commercialism that is contained there. You have to offer a pure lamb, and your lamb that you brought will not be pure enough, but the ones that are offered, you pay some coins that goes in for the sacrifice. And so sacrificing the lamb is a significant thing, part of the Jewish tradition, in the sense that if I have a sin, then I put it onto the lamb gets slaughtered, and I get forgiven, a kind of symbolic thing like that. And thousands of people would have arrived in Jerusalem for this feast. So there's a drama being enacted now, some 2,000 years later, which begins a kind of Holy Week. It begins with Jesus' entrance into Jerusalem and goes on from there. And what is the significance of this feast? Well, ordinarily it would just be an ordinary Paschal feast. Pasch is a Greek understanding of the Jewish term. And the difference is that this person, who was a teacher and who was also a miracle worker, and so somebody who was significant and seen to be by his followers as a Messiah. Messiah means an anointed one, and two Messiahs combined, either separately or combined, were expected to save the race there, the Jewish people, from the tyranny of Roman occupation, foreign occupation, bringing back the original kingdom of David. So a political thing on the one hand, but a religious thing on the other hand, because the Messiah would also be a messenger of God, would also be have a spiritual dimension, a high priest, if you will. And to the followers of this Christ, of this Jesus, this anointed one, he was such a Messiah. Now, he would have gained such prominence that people would have been concerned about this claim for political reasons, probably. And so, after the meal, of course, that was celebrated like every other Jewish community, he put in a significance reinterpreting the bread that was offered and the wine that was offered there, and aligning them physically to his own circumstances. This is my body, this is my blood, that kind of thing. In commemoration of me, you can do this. And that has a deep mystical significance, because if you meditate on this supreme entity and in an intimate way, then just as food becomes your body and drink becomes your blood, and the two combined become this earth carb made from yesterday's food, in that same intimate way, you can imagine a mystical union, if you will. A mystical union where nearness becomes oneness. This is the goal of all meditation. And so anyway, 3 days after that or so, he gets arrested, he gets tortured, he gets crucified. And if the story ends there, then we have just a historical account and we leave it there and nothing else happened. A great person arrived, a great person came and taught, and we can pick up the teachings. And so the accounts which we have are to do with his miracles, his teachings, and also his personality. During these 3 days of trial, the remarkable thing about Jesus as a great spiritual personality was that he never answered his accusers. It's a great lesson for all of us. So how can Christ inspire us? Well, to start with, when people make a lot of noise and divert our attention toward worldliness, our reply should be no thank you, and not to engage in it, either in thought or word or deed. Just keep quiet. If you don't agree with somebody, you keep quiet. If you agree with them, you can nod, you can say yes. If you disagree with them, you just keep quiet. If the whole world did that, I think many wars would be averted. And so this was one great lesson. That lesson alone, suffering all of that for ostensibly, theologically, for mankind, giving up his own life for the sake of others, and symbolically saying, instead of offering lambs there at the temple, I'll make this personal thing a lamb, and I'll become the willing offering. Changing the whole understanding of animal sacrifice, if you will. And I remember how Buddha was challenged by the thought of animal sacrifice. Why do you do this? Oh, we want to offer the best. I see. Well, since you like me so much, why don't you offer me? And they weren't willing to do that, naturally. But Jesus now says, I am your living sacrifice. So he's making several claims. First of all, he's making a claim that he is an incarnation, a son of God, in an area, theological area in Judaism, still not accepted, that there is such a thing as a cosmic balancing power coming from age to age and living amongst us. It's a very foreign concept at the time, but where does this concept come from? So if this Jewish sect had just remained in Jerusalem and not gone any further, or even if it had remained in Galilee, which is where the movement seemed to start, then that would have been dead in the water. Now, our own tradition, of course, follows this great spiritual personality, Ramakrishna. And if Ramakrishna's words remain simply in Calcutta and go no further, then what becomes of the universal message and the personality of Ramakrishna, who was the supreme example of the Vedanta philosophy as a universalizing principle? And would he have said, please teach my personality? And the answer is an emphatic no. It was left to his great disciple, Vivekananda, to spread the message, just as it was left to St. Paul, Peter, and so on and so forth, these early apostles, to spread the message everywhere. And so where does this whole idea of this Easter come from? It really comes from this elaboration of the teachings and the personality of Jesus as an example, highest example of the teachings, to the land of what was considered to be the Gentile land. You wouldn't normally spread this message to everybody, but in the Roman Empire, there would have been Jewish communities in synagogues all over the place, but there would have necessarily had to be a way of spreading a universal message which is acceptable to those people that it's being taught. We also have the same challenge. Wherever our message goes, we have to teach this universal message in a comfortable, easy, digestible manner that is acceptable to the people that the message is being gone to. Would they understand puja and all this ritualism? Not at all. Having gone to France recently and just returned yesterday, several recently anyway, the great information was told to me by the Swami there in Gretz. He said, the founder of the French center, Swami Siddheswarananda, said, I only teach in France, I only teach the Mandukya Upanishad. The Mandukya Upanishad. Yes, why don't you teach devotion to God? Because in Catholic France, everybody has the devotion anyway. Why don't I just teach the basic, most convincing philosophy, the conclusive, final offering that Vedanta has as the three states of consciousness? You can't get a better underlying teaching than this about the idea that this world is something like a superstition. We don't take it like that, we take it as reality. But the reality is in terms of not just one state of consciousness, but a variety of three. And throughout the whole of France, you find churches everywhere. In fact, France used to be, in its day, the pristine Christian country and the pristine Roman Catholic country since the Reformation. And so the lesson for us, of course, the inspiration for us is, wherever we go, we should then do a kind of syncretization. We should incorporate things. In Ireland, they did it. In Ireland, they took the Celtic traditions to do with springs and trees and what have you. And instead of saying, no, that's no good, here's something new, they said, let's put a spiritual dimension to this. And so putting a spiritual dimension to the Greco-Roman world of the original message, St. Paul, who physically never met Jesus, but understood him in the mystical way, which is really how he should be taken, the Logos as it developed, the Neoplatonistic idea of Logos, Nous, the cosmic balancing power coming down. There's an interesting parallel that we find, and we'll pick it up in the Gospel of Ramakrishna. So he says, and he's there in Shampukha, suffering from this cancer. And devotees look at him and can hardly bear his suffering. And the doctor who's attending him instructs him, please don't talk, because it's aggravating your cancerous throat. But then he spends 3-4 hours sitting with him talking. And they say, well, what about all your other patients? He says, to hang with that, your Paramahansa has taken me away from them and ruined my business. Everybody laughs. He said, it's very difficult to understand that God can be a finite human being and at the same time the all-pervading soul of the universe. The absolute and the relative are his two aspects. How can we say emphatically with our small intelligence that God can assume a human form? Can we ever understand all these ideas with our little intellect? Therefore, one should trust in the words of holy people. He says holy men means holy people. And great souls, those who have realized God. They constantly think of God as a lawyer of his lawsuits. Unless a person is guileless, that means innocent, he cannot easily have faith in God. God is far, far away from the mind steeped in worldliness. Worldly intelligence creates many doubts and many forms of pride of learning, wealth, and the rest. So he goes on like that. Now, he also mentions here that the doctor's son does not believe in all these things, such as incarnations. So he says, your son, Amrita, does not believe in God's incarnation. There are many people who would not believe in an incarnation, particularly in the Jewish world, completely foreign to them. In the Greco-Roman world, it might be a little bit more acceptable and interesting. But not in the Jewish world. If they had confined themselves to the Jewish world, it would have been a sect that would have come and gone and died. Maybe in somebody's memory, something would be there through maybe a sect called the Ebionites and so on. So he says, your son Amrita does not believe in God's incarnation. What is the harm in that, he says? One realizes God if one believes him to be formless. Now we come to the original question, what about this Brahman? Can we confine Brahman to anything? Can we say Brahman is vast? Can we give Brahman any dimensions? Not at all. Can we symbolize these things beyond the human mind in any way we like? Yes. Can we think that maybe if we look at the sky, we get some impression of infinity? Can we look into the night sky and see just void? And can we get some inkling of an idea of infinity? Can we look with modern technology at the vastness of space containing small jewels such as galaxies and what have you, small dots of light that are picked up and seems to be inexhaustible? Can we from this get some idea of infinity? We can. The Brahman has 3 descriptions, and for this we give an apology. But we know it's true because it's nothing to do with qualities. It's nothing to do with real descriptions. It says that there is an existence, not a non-existence. We can't come to a conclusion of complete emptiness. Something has to be there. Supposing you make an argument, you see. If you empty the ocean, then you truly have nothing. No, you still have sand there. No matter how much you empty something, something still remains. So it is existence itself, Sat. And then how can you get consciousness from unconsciousness? The question of consciousness is a subject that many people are investigating now because it seems to be a mystery. It is deemed to be, by some philosophers, the hard problem of consciousness. Well, it's not hard consciousness if consciousness is a foundation. But people are talking about the external aspect of it, the objective aspect of it. We are self-aware. We have no idea if an ant is self-aware. We have no idea if a plant is self-aware. We suspect a rock is not self-aware. So what is the difference between conscious beings and this unconscious thing? We have to say that if we believe in an unfolding system where you cannot get something from nothing, if you say that we are conscious beings aware of our environment, aware of the activities of our mind that translates into intelligence, then we have to say that that original entity is consciousness itself. And then if you say, what about when you actually realize it directly, firsthand, as we all have to, when all the clouds are moved on, all the clouds of ignorance are moved on, when all the reality that we deem to be a reality dissolves like a dream, what is left? And we know it is bliss. Is there some example we have in our human life? Yes. In a deep sleep, we feel blissful. It's not the supreme bliss, but the secret of its bliss is there's no second to argue with. There's no second to fight with. There's no second to be jealous of. There's no time, no space, no objects. It's all gone. It's all a oneness. And then, of course, we go into this duality or multiplicity world called waking state again. And so it is described by those who have found it as supreme bliss. And in meditation also you can find some semblance of it. Taittiriya Upanishad gives us a ranking of various levels of bliss. And every level gets exceeded by one who knows this Brahman as is taught in the Vedas. So he says, one who also realizes God, if one believes that he has form, two things are necessary for the realization of God, and I repeat, two things, faith and self-surrender. Now it is the self-surrender aspect that we are seeing in the personality of Jesus. In other words, in his life, we see the supreme example of renunciation. A homeless person wandering along the shores of Galilee, etc., with some followers, some of whom saw him, and immediately he says, "Come follow me," and immediately it's recorded they drop their nets and follow him. That's the magnetism such a personality had. And prepared to die, to be the Lamb of God, to be the one self-sacrificing. You cannot get any more supreme example of self-surrender than this. And in Ramakrishna's case, you cannot get any more a greater example as well, because his suffering, and he mentions it, is, I have taken on your suffering, he says. Out of compassion with you, for you, I'm paraphrasing, I'm taking on the suffering. But if you say stop, then I can easily just leave the body. So, in all cases, the highest supreme example of human perfection will be a generosity of spirit, a supreme faith that comes from absolute conviction, that comes through in the personality and teachings, and this self-sacrificing, self-surrender attitude. Like a child. Guileless is what Ramakrishna is describing it as. Your son Amrita is a nice boy, he finally concludes, and the doctor says, yeah, he's your disciple. And the master with a smile says this, something remarkable. There is not a fellow under the sun who is my disciple. On the contrary, I am everyone's disciple. All are the children of God. All are his servants. I too am God's child. I too am his servant. Uncle Moon is every child's uncle. What humility in greatness. So, you see, from a teacher's point of view, is like this. From a student's point of view, oh, I have a teacher, I have a guru, I have a master. But from the other point of view, and I always give this example, supposing I go to India and I visit a dozen temples and I see God in all of them, will I come back and say, oh, I got 12 new disciples today and my trip? You can't say that. So the teacher's point of view, so-called, is I'm not a teacher. Why? Because everybody I see, I'm seeing the God in everyone, the Christ in everyone, the Lord in everyone, the divine in everyone, the Brahman in everyone. That's the point. So, This description of Jesus in the last days, even in the last days, never mind about the life itself, is remarkable. And so, why do we celebrate? Are we celebrating the death of somebody? No. From the Christian point of view, the end of the story is not the Last Supper, is not the crucifixion, the intense torture. Physiology will tell us, and historical research will tell us, the greatest cruelty in this execution. It was an execution, but not a swift one. At least in the French Revolution, they developed something called guillotine, which was designed to be extremely quick. Somebody is supposed to not be able to feel it. You can't use a blunt axe. The blade is sharpened, it falls from a height, and the head is severed immediately. So it's almost a kind of compassionate thing. The only thing is, everybody under the sun was arrested at some point or other and made part of a bloody revolution. No, the Roman torture was tortuous. It was designed that you would die from asphyxiation. And there are now films being made of this and so on. And we'll see the terrible, terrible humiliation. It was designed to humiliate. The Romans not only selected people to do this, but made a public display of it, putting them on the highest point of a city and the entrance to the city, so people coming in would see there's an example. If you cross us, the imperial Roman rule, this is your fate. But then you see the story continues consistently, that the body was probably, according to some historians, put in a temporary grave belonging to Simon of Arimathea. It was typical, let's put you in my home grave, just for emergency sake, where we will, because the body is bound, where we will now do some ritualistic care of the body, bathe the body in aromatic herbs and so on and so forth, wrap the body properly and give a proper burial. Some may say that this was the scenario because in the earliest gospel, which is Mark's gospel, the women come to anoint the body. They wonder, how will we roll the stone away? And they see the stone is already rolled away. And then they enter into the chamber and they see a man. Later accounts say angel and so on, but the earliest accounts say a man. And he says, no, he's not here. And earlier, the disciples had been told, I'll see you in Galilee. And so in the earliest gospel, we find him appearing in Galilee. And this appearance reminds me a lot of Ramakrishna's own appearances everywhere, in visions and so on. For example, to his consort, Holy Mother Sharada Devi, he appears and says, please, the bangles that you removed, as widows customarily do, please put them back on. And you took the red strip off your clothing, as widows do. No. I've only gone to the next room. And this served two purposes. It served comfort. And it served the idea that this extremely perfect entity is still alive and still with us. And this was the inspiration for Christianity until today. That it didn't end with that crucifixion, there's the end of it, but it ended with what is now called the resurrection. That a physical body is glorified and is with you and gives not only a comfort, but also sends a comforter, according to Christian understanding, a spirit, a kind of Shakti, a divine energy that continues with you. And the lesson, of course, is that what we call the divine is never absent from us. It's always present, closer than breathing, present to the tips of the fingers. And the greatest spiritual practice we can do is to feel that intimate, real presence. That's why a foundational book that is always given would be Practicing the Presence by Brother Lawrence. I mentioned that, where I was previously, and we had discussed this. And one participant put into our community group a copy of this Brother Lawrence, this Practicing the Presence, did it in French. Then the next question is, so we know how this Easter arose, but why do we call it Easter? Why don't we continue to call it the Passover feast? And why do we have different dates for this? And what has rabbits and eggs and so on to do with all this? So, the whole question of the date was contested for about 300 years. There are some who wanted to stick to the exact date of the Jewish Passover, particularly in what is now called southern Turkey. They were adamant about it. Another group of people said, we're in the Greco-Roman world, and we understand that people celebrate the vernal equinox, and syncretization has to take place. We have to merge our traditions. After all, these are relatively unimportant things. We have to make it easy and significant for everyone. And the vernal equinox is worthy of celebration, and people are doing it. We're aware of this. So we take it, and we take the nearest Sunday, because Sunday, of course, is significant to us because it is the day that Jesus rose from the dead in our tradition. So we take the nearest Sunday to it. And now a dispute arises. And we are told that for the first 300 years, the most significant disagreement, diversification, arguments within the Christian community within that period of time was about this date of Easter. Nowadays, we think that it doesn't seem hugely important. And eventually, the great Christian pioneering Saint Irenaeus of Lyon makes a decision. He says, look, it doesn't matter. It shouldn't destroy our fellowship. So those who want to celebrate it on the actual equinox, as the Jews do, the same dates of the Passover, they're free to do it. And those who want to adapt it according to a different date, they also can do it. Now, the different dates arise from the way we calculate time, because the Jewish tradition is to go according to a lunar calendar, and the Roman tradition was to go according to a solar calendar. So what to do? And you arrive at a Julian calendar, which unfortunately is 11 minutes out. And over time, that amounts to something like 11 years. Or something of that nature, you know. So as time goes on, the difference, the disparity increases. It is only in the 16th century that a Catholic Pope Gregory decides, no, let's introduce a different kind of calendar, which is the one we approximately use today. And there are still traditions in Christianity that use the old Julian calendar. And at the Nicene, the Council of Nicaea in Christianity, we see that Constantine, who wants to unite everything, is saying, okay, let's resolve this, please, and most settle on the Sunday after the vernal equinox date. And then that creates a diversification. It moves away from the Jewish origins of Christianity and moves now into a broader context of the Roman Christian world and gives this syncretization aspect to it. Then why do we call this Easter? Well, interestingly enough, it seems that 700 years after Jesus' death, or life and death, there is this mention only of local people in the north, that is the Celtic tradition, that is in the Germanic areas, had a goddess called Ustra, a goddess of fertility. And this happens to be her feast day because it is like the spring festival celebrating the equinox and so on and so forth. But there's no historical evidence for it. And we find it only in one mention of it 700 years later. And a historian who's not really historically accurate just mentions this and doesn't say this is the origin of it. It just says popularly, this is what we call it now. That's all. Not to honor any spring goddess or anything like that. It's just what we call it now. And so in the 19th century, 18th, 19th century, you see two brothers called the Grimm brothers. The Grimm brothers tell all kinds of fairy stories very nicely. They catch on to this and make a mythology from it. It's not their fault. It's just their job is to tell stories, and they told a story. Then we find in Alsace in Germany, there's a tradition. And the tradition comes from the Protestant area. And in that Protestant area, they are talking about fun occupation for children. That there is a great Easter bunny that comes along, an Easter rabbit, and hides eggs in various places in herb gardens and so on. And children delight in finding these. This is in Protestant area. If you introduce this idea into this diversified Christian community of, let us say, non-Protestants, they'll be surprised. But there is also some meaning. After Lent, where you have to sacrifice many things, including the luxury of eggs, you can now eat eggs. And I suppose eggs can represent, birth and so on and so forth. If you give a Christian dimension to this. And so globally for us, regardless of whether you're Christian, non-Christian, and so on, the egg could symbolize a new birth, a beginning. And if we relate it then to the Christ of Christianity, a new beginning for everybody, a new glorious sunrise. After nightfall, the great, great sorrow of the apostles and so on, seeing that this great hope of theirs had been humiliated and given the most cruel death and torture, and seeing that what had been the point of all this remarkable life. And then they understood, okay, there's a new life. It gives us a hope of a new glorious kingdom, if you will, a kingdom of heaven, to put it in that language. So what does that mean for us spiritually? We go through a dark night. We go through depression. We go through lack of faith. We go through doubt. We go through struggle until we find actually internally there is the glorious Atman, there is the self. It is always there. It is always present. And when we discover it, it is like a new dawn. It is like an opening. It is like discovering the light of lights. It is rescuing us from the darkness of ignorance. See, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light, from death to immortality. The same concept is there, put in such a beautiful graphic way to say this should be significant for all of us, regardless of whether we are Christian or Muslim or Hindu, or regardless of what it is, or Jewish even, regardless of it. The dawn of knowledge is there, not intellectual knowledge, but understanding knowledge, a revelation, like the clouds moving on and the sun gets revealed. It's not that the sun was introduced. It's not that it was invented. It's not that it is to come. It is already here. That realization has to be there. And so we now see the significance, I suppose, if you want to put it that way, of rabbits and so on. The German people, they went into areas in America and made a big deal of it, and that commercialism was transported to chocolate factories and so on. And so we have this understanding, or not real understanding, this kind of fun aspect that we could relate to the theological, philosophical, and spiritual aspects of what we are describing today. And then we've described that, we've described the history of it, we've described the renaming of it. And the most important thing, though, is the significance of the day, more so than Christmas, because it tells us something about our own self-discovery and connecting with what we call the Christ or the Buddha or the internal Atman, that entity which is universally present in all of us and is the goal of our life. And any other kind of idea or goal is really a diversifying factor and a delaying factor to our goal of the manifestation of this divine from within, and this road to perfection and freedom for all of us. So may this day inspire us all, and may we get the deep message from it, not just a message in terms of historical contents, context, or a superfluous context about, rabbits and spring and so on and so forth. No doubt it's there. But the contents are the context of deep, deep discovery, spiritual discovery about our own reality. So we leave it there then. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Enjoy the rest of your Easter and the rest of your Easter holiday. Thanks.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Yeah. And then Maya is with qualities.
Yes. So we use the term Maya etymologically. Maya comes from the same root as magic, you see.
Right. Yeah.
Now you see, if you don't know the key, the secret of a magician, you'll assume it is something that you rub your eyes, you can't believe it, and yet you accept it's real. Yet behind it, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
So how does Maya work? It's like a magician or conjurer using two hands. I'll divert your attention with the one, and with the other hand do something different. That's why they get I suppose, the phrase underhand. Something underhand, under the table is happening. And mystifying children, you see. We are all children, and we're all mystified with this, thinking that it is real and not understanding it is the Lord's dream. And there's no separate dreamer. The dreamer and the dream is the same thing. What we call Maya is Brahman manifest with time and space and causation and function as well. So when you add these things, there's nothing separate. It is the apparitional universe that we find is only from one entity. And what we have in the microcosm of the human world, we find everywhere on the whole universal scale. So there is God's mind that we call cosmic mind, or the cosmic Christ, or the cosmic Buddha, or the cosmic Ramakrishna, choose as you want, or the cosmic Krishna. You see, this idea of I am the son of everything. I am the one that was there before the earliest person, the earliest Rishi you could ever think of. Krishna is declaring it, way before Jesus is declaring it. So who is correct? Is it Krishna or Jesus? No, it's the same entity. The cosmic mind coming to rescue the world from age to age. And according to the Bhagavad Gita, it's not ended. Whenever there's a decline of this harmony, then I come, he says, and fix things. So Jesus did that as well. You see, Jesus came in the midst, not of harmony, came in the midst of a people who were suffering from the deprivation of freedom, political freedom, no doubt, but also religious freedom to some extent. But not only that, but religion had been corrupt. So when there's a decline of dharma, we can also put it in a decline in religion as such, the organization structures and legalities which restrict our freedom, not open it. And every person who comes, every prophet, every holy person who comes, will say, let's open it up. Let's cut all the restrictions. Let's not make it narrow. Because narrowness provides us with exclusivism. Exclusivism, same thing as nosism. My nose is the only true nose. All your noses are false. Why? Because it's my nose. No other reason. So this kind of misunderstanding produces all kinds of divisions, all kinds of disruptions, arguments, wars. And today these wars have some dangerous element because of the nuclear threat, which is there, hanging over all our heads. So to bring harmony, that is why these incarnations come. Cosmic mind comes as a balancing power to set things right. And all of them declaring that you should fix your mind on these entities. Fix your mind on me. How many times Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita? And Jesus is the same thing. I'm the way. I'm the truth. Now the only difference is, Jesus said, I'm the way. The theologians who want to restrict it says, I'm the way, the only way. Interpret like this. He says, I'm the way. You know, when I go in a car, we travel up to Belfast, Dungannon, whatever it is, I say, don't fall asleep. Look at the road. Jesus said, I'm the way. I joke, you see, Jesus was a Taoist. Tao means the way. He said, I'm the way. Not only I'm the way, but I'm the goal. I'm the goal and the way, both. Not the exclusive gate, you see. And so when I discuss this with interfaith colleagues who are Christian, they say, no, but you can't say all religions are true because Jesus said, I'm the way. You can only see the Father through me. I'm the gate, and so on, all this. Yeah, no, we agree, but as logos, cosmic mind. Only one cosmic mind is there. Only through the cosmic mind for most people. Some can go directly and bypass it, but others have to go to the central headquarter office. So that's the difference. You can say, I'm the way, or I'm the way. You can stress that. That's the difficulty. We are in the same danger. Anybody who has a personality larger than life, you can say, if you're a Muslim, Muhammad is the only last prophet. Finished. See? Or you can say, you know, Jesus is the only Son of God, and our salvation is only through the blood of Jesus. Finished. And then we could easily say the same thing about others. See, Buddhists don't say it, but then Buddhists may have a subtle version of that. You know. So it goes on like that. And some people might say, supposing you come across this wonderful personality, Ramakrishna of the 19th century, and see that he is, as others declare, maybe a prophet or an incarnation of this age, as the hymns will tell us. Will you emphasize that and have a fight with Christians about it? No, it's not important. Ramakrishna declares it's not important. Is it an advantage? It can be an advantage, absolutely. But then it's a disadvantage when you say, the only way. Teach that personality. So Swami Siddheswarananda never did that. He taught the Mandukya Upanishad and said, if you want devotion, yes, you have churches and rituals so well enough everywhere. You have devotion already. Don't leave your churches. Continue with your churches. Continue with that ritualistic aspect. Continue with that devotional aspect. Don't come and convert to Hindu ritualism and puja and all that. That's not the way. No more than it's the way when Christianity spread throughout the entire Greco-Roman world from St. Paul and so on. And he then got into difficulty because he was saying, no, if you want to be a follower of the truth, you don't have to be circumcised. You don't have to stop your diet. You can continue with your customary diets. You don't have to stop eating pork and all that. And then because he brought money back to the central Jewish community, which was there, the brothers and so on of Jesus, James, for example, Jesus' brother, he brought an example with him. Here's a Gentile who is a follower of our beloved Christ, and he is not circumcised, and he's not changed his diet, but you can see how he's a good person. And according to the Acts of the Apostles, they kind of agreed and so on and so forth, even though they may have opposed that and said, well, and bring it out of a confined Jewish sect to the broader community. What is religion? Is it about diet? Is it about vegetarianism? Is it about bathing? Is it about puja? Is it about ritualism? Is it about doctrine and dogma? Not at all. It's about deep access of your own innermost spirit. It's about discovering your own inner divinity. That's what it's about. The kingdom of heaven within. That's what it's about. Teach that. That's the good news. All right, we leave it there then. Okay. All right. Good.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swamiji.